Good morning. This is David with EV World News. We talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. I'm here today with Bill Moore, our founder
Good,
and editor-in-chief. How's it going, Bill?
good morning, everyone. What a day,
All right. So it's raining here in Nebraska today, which we don't
thankfully.
see. We don't have very many dreary days here in Nebraska. It's usually quite sunny. So first off, I want to talk a little bit. Last week, or was that 2 days ago? No, I think it was last week. We were talking about the release of the R2. So, and it's not R2D2. This was the
Right.
Rivian R2.
R2 and the R3 and the R3X.
Yep. And Rivian announced yesterday that they are going to add a second shift at their Illinois work plant. They expect to assemble 57,000 vehicles this year, which is the same as last year, apparently.
Right.
But due to efficiency improvements, that goal can be done in 2 shifts. I'm not sure if there was 3 shifts or 1 shift.
I think there was 3 shifts and they cut it back, I believe. But don't hold me to that. I think that's what they had briefly had the 3 shifts. So
Well, they announced that they'll be making the new R2 midsize SUV at the Normal, Illinois plant starting in early 26, where the R1T pickup truck is being built.
yeah,
And as production scales up, it would move manufacturing to its Georgia site that they're
yeah,
developing.
yeah.
The
Yeah,
art,
they have slowed up the for obviously financial reasons because they've been burning through so much cash, but they've slowed up the development of the Georgia site, and it's nice to see that they're focusing on the normal facility and getting some people back to work. So that's good.
so then there's just a little blurb about the R2, expected to sell for around 45,000, 300 miles of range on a single charge, and it'll accelerate 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds.
Wow.
That's
Yeah,
quick.
they've I think they've come up with a winner with that design. That's really a nice looking vehicle.
Well, like I said,
A really good performance.
the vehicles look like how you picture what an electric Range Rover would look like.
Yeah.
But I've seen some other comments about like AMC Pacer, because they have another one coming out called the R3, and it looks a little bit like the Pacer did.
Oh no, nothing like the Pacer. No, I've seen. I grew up with the. I didn't now own one, but I grew up in the era of the Pacer. And Pacer was an interesting design. It was just a bit too radical for most American car buyers, but it's pretty radical design. So yeah,
I get it. So another thing, Oak Ridge, Tennessee National Laboratory
yeah.
scientists power an EV with a wireless charger that puts out
Mhm.
100 kilowatts. And they powered it in 20 minutes. Now, so scientists at U.S. Oak Ridge National Laboratory successfully demonstrated wireless charging of a passenger vehicle with a 100 kilowatt charger. It was completed with a 5-inch gap between the charger and the vehicle, similar to what is achieved in small consumer devices with this ability. I just picture a squirrel or something getting in between the thing and just
And getting
yeah.
microwave? No,
I don't know. I don't know how that
I
works.
don't think so.
As the adoption of EVs increases globally, charging infrastructure also needs to be stepped up. Car manufacturers have successfully deployed 250 kilowatt or fast chargers that can rapidly charge vehicles. Of course, the other day we were talking about a 500 kilowatt
Right. Yeah.
charger, which I was really impressed with. But this says, imagine going to a drive-through restaurant and charging up your EV while you're placing your order and waiting for it to be delivered. No need to stop. Your car can juice up the battery pack as you're in line.
Now, do they charge that, or is that a ancillary service that is that included in your hamburger, or is that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting thought. Well, I've seen some stuff where Big Mac meals now costing close to $20, but they
Oh
could probably
yeah,
afford to
yeah,
throw in
yeah.
a few cents worth of electricity, right?
Yeah. Well,
It,
the thing I found interesting about that was, and I don't quite, I guess we need to talk to Oak Ridge, but apparently they're able to achieve this high rate of charge using spinning magnets. And I'm wondering, how does that work? But More
They were
powerful.
able they were able to increase the battery charge in a Hyundai Kona by 50% in 20 minutes.
Hmm.
Now, I don't know how significant that is, what that represents. That might only represent 100 miles of range,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure how earth-shattering this is, but that is an idea. If you had some way to be charging the vehicle while the vehicle's sitting
Right.
in a drive or something like
Basically,
that.
the idea is you don't have to get out, open the door, take the cable, plug the, you just pull it up and, a
And it
light comes
charges.
on the dash as you're connected and you get out and walk away, and when it's done charging, it stops charging, I guess. I don't know.
But anyways, all right. So uh, Tesla is doing something in California where they're building the world's largest supercharger with pull-through stations.
Mhm.
And so they're designing, because one of the hiccups that people have found so far with the Cybertruck is if they're towing anything with it, you have to unhook the trailer to go charge it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And
Really.
yeah, because the the setups have been set up differently than they are set up for, how people traditionally get gas.
Yeah. Speaking of the Cybertruck, Sandy Monroe, if anybody watches, Sandy's channel, the company Monroe Associates just took delivery of their Cybertruck Beast version, a three-motor,
Mhm.
whatever, a Cybertruck. Oh, excuse me. The purpose of which, of course, is to take it apart and
Oh
figure out
God.
how it all came together. So he announced that just about an hour ago. So this is fair. So if you want to see a Cybertruck slowly being disassembled, unlike SpaceX's Starship 3,
Mhm.
which two functions of which we'll talk about that in a minute. So check out Sandy Monroe if you want to see what how they put it together. In this case, take apart a Cybertruck.
All right. Well, let me see what else we had here. So the concept is being done in Kern County, California, includes 16 pull-through charging spots. Now, so far, Tesla hasn't announced anything about it, but let's see. Wow, there's another spot with 164 charging stalls planned as part of a new microgrid project off of I-5 near Lost Hills. That site will include the 16 pull-through chargers and solar canopies above every parking stall.
Yeah, I have no. Well, I've
That's also been an issue
driven
with
the
EV
five a
charging.
couple of occasions, but I don't remember that one. So
Well, this has generally also been an issue with charging, because when you fill up a gas car, you pull up to a gas pump and it's
right,
underneath a canopy, right?
and then
Well,
you just
the
hold
the
on to it
EV
when you're done.
spots, the EV spots are generally just out in a parking lot. You pull into a parking space and you just start charging
By
your
the
car.
way, backwards if you own a Tesla,
Right.
which I always found, a little problematic. It's on, you know, I don't
But
know. I don't know why you always have to pull in backwards, but I guess you
well,
don't want that. I don't know if the cable's long enough to reach if you pulled in straight and took it and tried to plug in on the right or the left rear. So
in this case, they're going to have solar canopies so that all the vehicles will be parked in the
right,
shade
right,
and
right.
out of the rain or the. I don't know if they have a whole lot of snow in that part of California,
Probably
but
not.
probably
Well,
not.
they do get snow there on occasion, yes, but
Anyways, all right, on to some of our bigger stories. So BYD doesn't is the largest EV manufacturer in the world. Even though Tesla sold 3 million EVs last year, they were beat by something like 40,000 EVs, I think, last year by
well,
BYD. It wasn't by much. And a lot of people don't realize, while BYD doesn't sell in the United States,
they're
it's
selling
partly
everywhere on
owned
the planet.
by a company here in Omaha. And
Uh-huh.
so Warren Buffett is one of their larger investors. And anyways, what did they reduce their ownership? It's either 8 or 12%.
Yeah, it was. I think it was originally 10. And
10
I
and they're
think
down to 8.
yeah, it's probably down to 8. I know and when he did, he made a lot of money. And I forget what the number was, but I don't know, it was $200 million or some number like that, and still owns shares of the company. They're early on after he did that investment. BYD came here for the Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting in the spring, and I got to actually meet the president, Wang Fu. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names anymore. And then also I got to interview the next year. I got to interview Stella Lee, who is the regional vice president for the company here in North America. So they always had a fairly significant presence. Early on, they brought one of the buses here to park in front of the CenturyLink Center. So they haven't been back for a number of years now, and I'm not exactly sure why, but there's
maybe it's been insignificant.
Other things to see at the Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting.
Well, so BYD doesn't really picture Tesla as their competition. So last year worldwide, EVs represented 20% of all new car sales. And BYD and Tesla are the two big companies in that space. But they're looking at how do they compete against various ICE cars, gas cars, petrol cars, whatever you want to call them. And
Volkswagen, Chevrolet, Buick.
Yes. So they launched a price war on ICE vehicles last month with the introduction of the Chen Plus EV and plug-in hybrid vehicles, starting at an equivalent of $15,200. The new EV officially opened a new era of electricity is cheaper than oil. The plug-in hybrid version is even cheaper, starting at $11,000.
Yeah, their very first vehicle, they were what they started off as making batteries for cell phones.
Wow.
And then of course they started looking at this thing. They were actually, their very first vehicle, if memory serves, was a hybrid. And they actually brought it here to the LA area, and I think several were bought by the Los Angeles Housing Authority and were used for running different things for the business. That shifted then over to the buses, and then in the meantime, when they started showing up here at the Berkshire Hathaway show, they had introduced their very first all-electric vehicle, which was used primarily in China and around the area where they're located, manufactured, as a taxi. And of course, then they had some issues with fires early on and that kind of thing, which kind of tarnished their reputation. But it didn't deter them from getting serious about building more and more electric vehicles. And then they did a deal with Daimler, and there's actually still a company out there that is a partnership of BYD and Daimler that is building luxury electric cars. And I think they're finally getting ready to introduce them in Europe. They've had them in China for a while, and I think they're going to start to introduce them in Europe.
Not surprising at all. So this is one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting. That $11,000 plug-in hybrid of the Chen Plus has a 74-mile all-electric range.
Wow.
That's big for a plug-in hybrid. They're usually 30 miles or something.
Yeah, because most of them are in I think the Toyota was introduced, they were in the up 25 to 30 mile range. The original Chevrolet Volt was in the 35 to 40 mile range. I think Mercedes' latest plug-in hybrid is somewhere in the 60 to 70 mile range. So, well,
the Chen Plus that's all electric has even the $15,000 version has a 261 mile range. That's really
getting either they're taking a bath financially, or they've got the cost of manufacturing those batteries down to a science.
Well, we've been talking about that, how the price of batteries has dropped by 50% in the last 2 years, and it's expected to drop by 50% again in the next 2 years. Yeah. These stories about people having a $25,000 battery replacement. I've heard of somebody getting their Tesla battery replaced, and it only cost them $12,000. Yeah. So it's going to drop even more. It's going to come down to where labor is the big piece there.
Yeah, it's probably refabricated, cells that have come out of previous. I mean, the cells will deteriorate at different rates. And why throw away the whole pack when maybe half of the cells are still good? So I was given a choice on repurpose or putting a new battery in my Prius, and that's a long story and won't take up time with it. But anyway, I was given a choice of, well, you can do $1,500, and you're getting a battery we warranty for a year. Do you want a battery that's just basically the same thing as goes in the production one? It'll cost you $3,000. I said,
so this
$3,000 one.
They're lowering the price of this Dolphin EV to $13,900.
Yeah,
so that's a $14,000 EV right there.
Talk to me about they're too expensive. Of course, you got to live in China.
Well, we can't buy the BYDs here in the U.S. because of U.S. export rules and stuff like that. But that'll change at some point.
Or you live in Thailand.
Yeah, well, we're seeing where they're going to start making them at some point soon down in Mexico, but that's not necessarily going to bring them into the U.S. But you'll start seeing some of them in the U.S. regardless.
Well, somebody can, if they live down there in Juarez or somewhere, or along the border, they can. Nothing to prevent them from driving up here. So somebody will catch some spy photos of them here in the U.S.
Yeah. Now these Atto 3s that I've got here in the picture, these sell. I know they sell really well in Australia.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see where some of this is going. Oh, they're plug-in hybrids. A fuel tank and a full charge will go 1,200 miles. It make it hard for. That makes it hard for regular gas cars to compete.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, you don't have a whole lot more arguing about this. Oh, here's somebody commenting. Personally, I don't care if all the legacy U.S. auto companies go out of business. BYD can make $10,000 quality EVs, and U.S. consumers should be able to buy them. And this is a thing. Even Musk has been talking about that the Chinese companies aren't making poor quality. They're making quality vehicles. And
no, when I saw that Chinese car, remember that at the very first one that BYD brought here to Omaha for the Berkshire meeting, there was a guy there who was apparently an automotive expert, and he's telling me, seeing all these flaws. Not to me, it looks like a great car, but he knew enough that he could find, where the gaps were different and that kind of thing that reflected the quality and edges and things like that. Oh, okay, well, they got a little ways to go still then. So
yeah, Tesla is new to the manufacturing process, right? And you got a lot of these companies like BYD and them. These aren't like legacy car manufacturers, it's a little different. Yeah. Now, my next story is about U.S. EV prices year over year from February to February dropped by 13%. And a lot of this was led by Tesla. We've talked about this. Some of the higher end Teslas, like the Plaid's come down 25% on the Model S Plaid. So that's pretty big changes on new cars. This is also the reason why we hear this argument, they don't hold resale value on the EVs. And a lot of it is because the prices of the new tech keep coming down and coming down. Eventually, as EV prices keep coming down, it's going to really hurt ICE prices.
Yeah, just to give you an example, my wife and I went over it's about a 9-mile drive from here over to the Trader Joe's. On that 9-mile drive, I spotted 5 Teslas here in Omaha.
That doesn't surprise me. Yeah, but I thought, that's a pretty big number for, to see prices drop, especially when we've been in a year of inflation and everything else. I mean, the price of cars in general has been going up, and it's been sort of stymied here. Now, I had another story from Business Insider. And they're talking here about buying a new car could cost you $7,600 a year on top of the sticker price. Now, this is basically talking about 5-year total cost of ownership.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, they decided to compare Ford F-150, Toyota RAV4, and the Tesla Model Y. And what's interesting is the F-150 and Model Y both cost about $7,000 annually to operate and maintain. Now, what they do is they took in the cost of fueling, the cost of financing. So not the actual payment, but just the interest costs, taxes, insurance, maintenance. And it's claiming that they're both fairly similar, which I'm not sure about some of this, what they're using for some of those costs on the Model Y, but they're showing a Ford F-150 having
Not
a sticker price.
This is the
No, not
gas one.
electric. This is a regular F-150 of $48,000. Okay. And I don't know where you're going to find a Ford F-150 for $48,000. I was telling you about.
Again, I don't know.
Yeah, there was somebody, he was going through all of these car dealerships out in Arizona where the trucks were all just sitting, and it was Toyota, Chevy, Ford, Dodge, and there was one Dodge Ram that was $58,000. That was the cheapest full-size pickup truck. So them saying a $48,000 sticker price, that car doesn't exist. But when you order a Model Y, you simply order the Model Y. It's that price, and it comes. You don't have to deal with all this other crap that the dealer adds on to the sticker. This is a little deceptive in this article to say that there's a $48,000 Ford F-150. They're trying to show that the F-150 is cheaper than the Model Y, and that's not true by any stretch. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find an F-150 that wasn't at least $20,000 more expensive than that.
Yeah.
And
well, I'm not in the market for one, so I haven't looked at one. I don't think I've looked at one ever. I've owned one pickup in my life, so that I bought used and had a scrap yard put a new engine in it.
Yeah. Well, anyways, let's talk about hydrogen powered jets. So we tend to get talking on here about aviation a lot, even though and some of it's electric aviation. This one is going to be a hybrid hydrogen battery aviation. And what have we got going on here, Bill?
Yeah, when I don't know, I have problems sometimes with the people. I don't know whether these are being written by robots or whether they're just written by people that are not aviation enthusiasts. So first thing is they talk about the size of that airplane being twice the size of a 737 and having range of like 5,000 miles and things. And why did you use the 737? Why didn't you use the 767 or the 787 or the 777, right? Which are all bigger airplanes than a 737. Well, it depends on the model of the 737. So then they talk about, it's going to be liquid hydrogen, which, okay, that's fine. I'm not sure where the tanks are on that because these have to be big, basically cylinders, because that you have to compress that stuff down to,
and it has to be extremely cold liquid hydrogen stored on board at minus 418 degrees Fahrenheit.
It's the same thing that they put in the Starship this morning when they were fueling. Okay. So is this going? Are they going to be feeding the hydrogen to a hydrogen burning turbofan engine? Right? They don't talk about how they're going to use that energy, or are they going to be feeding it to a fuel cell to run electric motors that run, fan jets or something of that nature? So okay, it's interesting, but it's just a concept. I think it's 279 passengers. Fly nonstop from London to San Francisco is the way they describe it.
So one of the arguments I've heard against hydrogen is that it's a low energy density gas.
Yeah, unless you compress and freeze the H out of it. Yeah.
So is that the object there? By freezing it, you're able to condense it and get more on board?
Well, yeah, because in the process of doing that, it's very low temperature. So that's when you see when they were, for example, anybody, if you guys watched the launch of Starship 3 this morning, once they start putting in that liquid oxygen and of course the liquid methane that they're putting in it, that particularly the oxygen, that frost ring on the outside of the booster. So so that you have to be very careful handling that stuff because you'll to get hit by a fluid that is minus 415 degrees is not going to do you a lot of good. So there's those issues. Where are you going to, okay, they fly to San Francisco. Who's going to supply, the liquid hydrogen, and how are they going to supply it at the airport? There's lots of okay, I'd like to see it happen, but it's not going to, it's going to have a lot of challenges to get there. Oh, there she is. Yeah.
Yep.
So they launched this morning. I watched and watched and watched. And, it looked like they were going to have their typical delay. See that white? That's the frost.
Okay. So it's actually got liquid hydrogen.
So it has no, they don't use hydrogen. They use liquid oxygen and they use methane, which so they you're seeing video. This is off of this is the booster. And everything actually, they really made progress today on this launch. Nothing blew up on the takeoff, unlike the first one. They were able to do the stage separation and to ignite the Starship engine. What you're seeing there on the lower left is the visual of the 33 Raptor engines running. So they're all running. There was no problem there. This is a view from the Starship back down. Or is that the I think it's the Starship's camera. So everything went well. Separation took place. They had the booster do its flip around, which last time blew it up. They able to have it do the flip, begin to come down. And when they got basically through that cloud layer over the Caribbean, they lost contact with it. And so what that told everybody is, and the last visual, you remember I was pointing out the little graph there at the bottom of the 33 Raptors. The last visual that was delivered was only one of those Raptor engines had lit, and all 32 others had not, although they generally don't light them all. They generally light only about 6 of them to slow and make the splashdown. They were going to do basically a controlled splashdown, like they'd be landing on land, except they'd be landing above water, and then they'd let it slowly, sink, and it should have been buoyant enough to float where they could go get it and retrieve it and bring it back. So that part went well up until the very last few seconds for some reason. And they'll get telemetry. They'll figure out, why that happened and why those engines didn't light and why that one particularly did, which probably shouldn't have. It should have been the central core of engines. The Starship itself went into space. God, I think it was 230 kilometers in space, traveling at something like 26,000 miles per an hour. They were saying that even coming into the atmosphere, that spaceship is traveling at 5 miles a second. Just 5 miles, blink and he's gone 5 miles. So everything was working fine there. They ran a couple of tests. They apparently what they call the PEDS door, which is a little slot on the side of the Starship from which they're going to launch future SpaceLink satellites, Starlink satellites. Just little slot opens up in the side of the thing, and these satellites will come out of there like PEBs, the little candy things. I didn't hear the results of the fuel test because they were looking to do some testing of fuels, because the idea is that they're going to send one ship up that will be a tanker, and it will refuel the ship that's going to go to Mars or the ship that's going to go to the moon. So I didn't hear the results of that, but they sent back credible video of it going over, basically it crossed over Africa and into the Indian Ocean and was going to do a splashdown in the Indian Ocean. They got video of it beginning to come through the atmosphere. And then, it got really bright because of the plasma that gets formed around the ship as it's slowing down. Again, doing 26,000 miles an hour against the atmosphere. And at that point, they lost the TDRS connection and the Starlink. They had 4 Starlink satellite transmitter receiver things on the ship. And so they were getting the video was being sent from that Starlink to the Starlink network and then back down to SpaceX. So about the time they lost TDRS and they lost the Starlink link, they figured the thing, had been destroyed on reentry. And there's a little narrow path that they had plotted out across the Indian Ocean to make sure that there was nobody, down there that could be hit by debris if that happened. So we're waiting on that. We got to, they got to get all the data back that they can, analyze it, and then I'm sure they'll share with us what happened. But that was exciting to watch.
All right. You wanted to talk about this figure robot demo.
Oh, well, speaking of, of course, SpaceX and Tesla are, doing advanced robotics with Optimus. I watched, there's a video that you can look up on the figure, which is a competitor that, it is, apart from still having a little bit of mechanical expression in how it does things, is phenomenal what it can do. This is a demonstration of it.
And you standing nearby with your hand on the table.
Great. Can I have something to eat?
Sure thing.
He asked
Great.
the robot,
why you
give
did
me
what you just
something
did
to
while you
eat.
pick up this trash?
And the robot
So I gave
picks
you the
an apple,
because it's the
puts
only
it in
edible
his
item I could provide you with
hand,
for the
and
table.
drops it into the guy's hand. He tells him, pick
Great.
up
So,
the trash
based on
and
the scene
tell
right
me
now, where do you think the
what
dishes in front of you
did.
go next?
Why didn't you give me the apple? This is being sped up a little bit, obviously. Then
Yes.
he says, where do you think the cup and the plate should go? Well, they should go in the drying rack, and there he does it. So, he's talking to him, it paused because it's using Chat GPT apparently for a lot of that interactive, text to speech, speech to text type stuff that's going on. But it is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And I watched some guys who were experts in robotics, and basically they're saying this is as cutting edge as anything, and probably more so than what Tesla's doing at the moment.
Yeah, that's really, it's amazing what's going on in robotics and AI. I've looked at various things. I had somebody try to invite me to a conference coming up, and I realized it was a bot doing because I recognized some of the tendencies. Like at first it sent me a text message and I didn't respond. And then it said, it asked me, what I thought. And then I put a response, and then it came out with this big over the top response to what I said that no human would say. And it's like, oh, my friend has a bot. I know, it said it was somebody's assistant, and I know it wasn't the assistant. It is an assistant. It was a robotic assistant, and it's quite interesting to see where some of that is going. I've seen some really interesting pieces that will book. Let's say you're a physician and somebody tries to call in, nobody answers. It'll initiate a chat with them. It'll send them a text message, and then as the person responds, the chat will go through and book an appointment. It'll figure out what spots are open on the appointment books and book an appointment for that person. The person never realizes they were talking to a robot, and some of that's just
the voice on this bot. There was nothing mechanical. It sounded like a guy just, you're sitting down like you and I are having a conversation. That's what it
Right.
sounds like. Nothing mechanical or electronic sort of, like there used to be. Just sound like an everyday person. Should
Oh,
he says, give me something to eat. Sure, here. And hands him the apple, right? And it's just
yeah. Well, I don't need a robot to hand me an apple, but that still was pretty decent.
Look how dexterous that was. It just
Yes.
picked it up, put it over in its other hand, turned and dropped it. Didn't wait for the guy to take it. Dropped it into the. That, by the way, the guy in there is the CEO of the company, who was there. And of course, the guys that were doing, the robotics experts were saying, it just amazed them. But it said,
right.
But its ability to how quickly it learned all these things. They obviously ran some demonstrations, but they said there was nothing about this that was telematic. There was nobody, this has been accused of, Tesla or, the guys working on the robots, that there wasn't anybody sitting there and telematically controlling all of this thing. The robot and the GPT, doing its thing. So
it will be like the Nikola hydrogen electric truck that was rolling down the hill, and when they claimed it was, before they had the technology done, and they defrauded investors by having the truck roll down the hill. It's like, oh God, people will do most anything.
Well, there's, look, Elon says, here, throw this steel ball at the window. It won't shatter. And of course,
it did.
There's another one. What was it?
Well, you remember when Bill Gates first was demonstrating Windows and he got a blue screen of death? When he's on stage announcing Windows to the world, and
Well, even Apple apparently, what was their first demonstration? They faked it. They had
I don't know.
Get it working, and I don't remember what it was, but one of the early technology demonstrations, they faked it because they hadn't quite got it working yet, and they already had the big reveal scheduled and things. So yeah, but apparently these guys said this was with the figure that was not telematic or pre-programmed to do this just for this video. It was all done with a single shot. There was no sort of cutting and video manipulation involved. This is independent third parties who are specialists in advanced robotics. So I'll take their word for it. They know more than I do.
No, I get it. But it just, people fake some of that stuff. Some of it they don't. You just never know. There's a lot of things in tech that can go wrong that. One just doesn't know what to expect.
Yeah, I keep wondering, when do we reach the Will Smith iRobot stage?
There you go. Anyways, Bill, we're
scary. That's a scary concept.
Oh yeah. Well, Bill, good show today, and
yes,
folks, thanks for watching. And our crowd gets a little bigger every day, it seems. Anyways,
well, thanks to everybody who's watching. We really do appreciate it.
Yes, yeah. Please comment. And let us know what you'd like to see in the future. And anyways, everybody have a great day, and thanks for watching.